Hi. So I'm back with a do's and don'ts. However, I'm not going to start with the don't as I usually do, because I actually need to show you how the application of the don't goes, because I wonder if some of you might think, that's what I do. So this do's and don'ts is all around cream blush. Now in front of me, I've got a whole host of cream blushes. Some I'd class more as liquid blushes. My favourite kind of cream to powder blush, and some classic traditional cream blushes. Now, I think it's relevant now because we're moving into summertime. In the UK, that means we finally got some sun, hurrah, and some warmer weather, which in turn, I think for a lot of makeup wearers means wanting to tone down the makeup and potentially create more of a glow, which is exactly what cream blush does, depending on the formula. So I think the reason why people love cream blusher is that it keeps the skin looking youthful, it keeps the skin looking hydrated, and potentially it prevents layering too many powder products on the skin. And lots of people are afraid of powder because of the detrimental appearance it can give the skin. And for those that don't know what I'm talking about, I think some people think, potentially slightly erroneously, that powder's going to make their skin look dry, dull, flat, and older. However, I think a little bit of powder is great through the T-zone, above the brows, something nice and lightweight like Hyaluronic Hydra Powder by Terry, Laura Mercier Translucent, for example. Back to the point in question. Cream blushes do vary hugely in texture. So let me run through a few quickly. Gillian Dempsey, not millions of shades, brilliant for those who don't want anything too wet, because it's a fairly, of all the cream blushes, it's a fairly dry formula. So potentially great if you've got slightly oilier skin, particularly on the apples of the cheeks. The Minimalist Whipped Powder Blush. This is Choco. I absolutely love it. This is more of a kind of whipped cream to powder, which I absolutely love. So again, for those that want something that's light feeling, that you can apply with a fluffy brush, I'll get onto tools in a sec, and that you don't necessarily want to wet a finish. Then Clé de Peau, I mean, pricey, but the most beautiful. If I show someone the back of my hand quickly, this is the one I use the most, number 4. Number 2, she says number 4 is slightly more neutral in tone. Goes on like a dream, ever so slight sheen, and again, less of the emollients added, so less kind of moisture, less wetness. These are expensive, but they look expensive. So these actually live in my kit. I use those on my clients. Moving into, then I'd say middle of the road, the blush I had the pleasure of co-creating with Beauty Pie. This is the Beauty Pie Super Cheek Cream Blush, which is not as emollient, so not as wet as some, but just the right amount of moisture that you get the glorious benefit of cream blush, so something a bit more dewy and lightweight looking, but with staying power. So that's why I wanted to start my cream blush journey here, because it would be perfect for everyone, whether you are someone who just wants a couple of quick products, whether you're a makeup artist. Staying power to me is really important. Then if we go to more kind of slightly richer, more moisturising creams, I mean, you can't go wrong with, that's VB, that's a lip to cheek, but you can't go wrong with a little bit of Trini. Love Lady J. And then one that I've just taken out of my kit is Bobbi Brown. You can't go wrong. That's the powder pink. But if I show you the difference in finish on the back of my hand, I don't know if the light's picking that up, but there's a little, it's not, is it? I'll show you on my face. There's a bit more of a moisturized sheen with that cream as there is with the Max Factor Miracle Touch Creamy Blush. There, you can see that on my finger. That's much more moisturising, therefore it gives much more of a glow to the cheek. Then we move into, I just want to shout out Nude Sticks. It is a cream blush, it's in a stick form. Love, love, love. So that's a quick shout out because, and this is the Bohemian Rose, which is a beautiful muted pink, not too bright, not too brown, a little bit of white, which gives it a slightly creamy finish. And then we move into slightly more liquidy products. So by liquid, I mean the new Kat Von D. It's beautiful, as is the new Lisa Eldridge. Then we've got things like the iconic cheek tint. And probably the most sheer I own are the Ciate Dewy Blush. Which you've seen in videos I've used before, which is the other end of the spectrum. So all the moisture, all the glow. I suppose it is slightly wet, but it looks absolutely glorious. So it depends on the look you're looking to create. Then we've got the Daniel Sandler watercolour blushes, which are iconic. Again, I've pulled those out of my kit to show you. These, however, anything that's really quite liquidy, my suggestion is these are great if you're wearing something light, like tinted moisturiser, something sheer. They are, or no base makeup at all. They apply beautifully. However, if you want to wear more of a makeup-y base, for example, let's just throw out there Estee Lauder Double Wear. What I find when I go really wet, let me show you on the back of my hand so you see what I mean. See what I mean, like proper liquid. I find applying really wet liquid product slightly more challenging when wearing a more powdery full coverage foundation, because I think there is then a risk that you might move the base you've applied underneath, in which case if you want to wear more of a makeup-y base but you still want a cream blush, you're better in the slightly drier family. That's the Clé de Peau, that's the spenny one, but it's beautiful. Gillian Dempsey Shiseido. So that's my recommendation. The lighter and more sheer your base, the easier. It's not impossible to use the liquidy ones on heavier base. It's just more prone or more open to error. Let's put it that way. The more sheer your base, so many words, the more sheer your base, and the easier it is to wear these lovely light liquids. Right, application. What I've witnessed, I've lived in London for 15 years now, and what I've witnessed people do, whether it's in pub loos or on public transport, I see a lot of this. I'm going to just go for it and call this a don't. So people are like, oh, how has my scarlet gone in the lid? There we go. I'm using a stronger colour. I normally use this on, this is beautiful, on deeper, warmer skin tones, but I'm going to use this strong colour so you can see what I mean. And I see people on public transport and they go with their finger, so they get a bit of product on, then they go like this. I wish I was exaggerating, but anyone else who's a people watcher, I guarantee you'll have seen people do that too. So I did that really hard for effect, but in doing that it has blended the cream. But what's wrong with that is going in with the very tip of the digit, so you've got kind of condensed product, then striping in a condensed area of pigment that then it's nigh on impossible to blend. So you do really have to scrub. Now, the negative side of really rubbing is twofold. You don't want to be stretching your skin unnecessarily. One. Number two, when you rub so hard, invariably you rub the product straight off again. So whilst I do have a bit of colour to that cheek now, I will assure you that's mainly because I've brought blood rushing to the surface because I've been a bit rough. Once that settles, actually you potentially won't even see the product you've applied. Is that ringing true for anyone? So had I demonstrated that with a more neutral colour, even the Gillian Dempsey Rose, for example, I'm pretty sure you wouldn't even see that cream blush. So let me just, because I want to show you two ways of applying, let me just tone that down. This is the Traceless Foundation Stick by Tom Ford. So let me just take that down a sec. Oh, for a minute then I thought we were live. I was going to go, which one do you want me to show? But let me show you. I'll show you classic cream, shall I? Let's go Bobbi Brown. Let's go Bobbi Brown. So 2 ways of applying. If you like your fingers, let me do fingers with this one. I prefer my 2 middle fingers and I use the flat pad. So I press into the cream blush. So you see it's covering the flat pad of my fingers. If you're unsure about the colour, don't panic. You can always test on the back of your hand. So dab on the back of your hand to see what the pigment looks like, because what you don't want to do is go into a product and have far too much on your fingers. So if in doubt, tap on the back of your hand and then soft smile at yourself and then press over the top of the apple of the cheek and blend back. So you see the touch altogether is totally different. It's much lighter. There's none of that desperately trying to move a stripe of pigment around to get a nice blend. And by just dabbing, we've gotten a nice bit of colour payoff and you've got that pretty sheen. So that's probably my preferred application method. If you like a brush, let me show you quickly my favourite types of brushes. So this is actually the one that comes with the Daniel Sandler watercolour blushes. So a flat kind of traditional foundation brush is great. I will often use angled blush brushes, much like I would with powder blush. And I'll just dip into my cream product and stipple. If you're using something like the slightly drier cream blush option, so Clé de Peau or Gillian Dempsey, this is the Hourglass foundation brush. I do like something slightly firmer that I can push the product into the skin with. The reason I say that is if you say we're to go with something really light and fluffy, this is a Zoeva Luxe Highlight and this is the 402 by Real Techniques. If you go in with really light fluffy brushes like this into a firmer product, the brush simply isn't going to pick up the product and lay it onto the skin. Also, if you've applied it straight to your cheek and you want to blend, because the product is more stiff, the soft bristles aren't going to move the product, so you'll be left with a blob of pigment. Hence why, all the words, sorry. Hence, who knew there was so much to say about cream blush? Hence why a firmer, more tightly bound brush will help move that product for you better. Then when it comes to things like your liquidy dewy blush, your Lisa Eldridge, your Kat Von KVD Beauty, I never know what to call it now, or your Iconic, that's when, because they're so much lighter, a light fluffy brush works really well. So let me show you, for example, let me show you with the Iconic. This is their powder pink. Oh, 2 cream blushes of the same name but totally different in texture. So that's the Bobbi Brown powder pink cream. This is the Iconic, so it's much wetter. Get a light fluffy brush and that's when you can smile and the light fluffy brush will really gently buff the product into the skin. The lighter your touch, the more colour payoff you will achieve. If you try and use a sheer liquid product like these and you use a brush that's too firm, you'll simply wipe the product away. If you rub it in with your hands too vigorously, you'll wipe the product away. Therefore, a light, fluffy brush gives you loads of control and it'll allow you to simply place the product onto the skin and allow it to sink into your makeup for a light, fresh, summery, seasonal blush look. If you stayed with me till the end, thank you. Oh, who knew there'd be so much passion around cream blush? I hope that's helpful. I hope that's busted some of your cream blush myths. If you're worried about longevity, panic not. To make cream blush really last, I'll often on my clients very lightly dust a powder blush of a similar shade on top to lock it in place, but not until it's truly set into the skin. Rule of thumb, all your cream based products first, then finish with your powders. Okay, love ya.